the incident. It does appear as though she is recalling some of what happened. She is able to communicate with us. Like I say, the surgeries obviously make a difference there, and it slows that process down. But our main concern, obviously, at this point is that she gets better, and we're not pushing this harder than she's able to deal with. So suffice it to say, at this point, she's talking with our investigators, communicating with our investigators. It's a very slow process, and her well-being, obviously, is our primary concern, and we're working through that as we speak.
Does she know the people who did this?
That I'm not aware of at this point. No names have been given. No reasons why this could have happened have been given. No additional detailed suspect information at this time, other than there was at least the 4 or 5 initial people that we had talked about, maybe more. Still the same basic descriptions that we had with the dark clothing. One of the male subjects that was involved was a larger male than the others. We've gotten no more detail at this point than that. I do feel confident that as time goes on, we'll probably be able to get further with that. She does seem to recall the incident. The communication is a little difficult at this time.
Do you believe now that this was a random act?
Well, we still don't know that 100% whether it is random or not. It indicates to me that it could very well just be a random act. That obviously is our worst fear, certainly the community's worst fear as well. That same feeling that the community would have of, gee, this could have been me or could be me next time, we're not at a point where we can comfortably say that that's not a possibility. So while it's still undetermined, we have to certainly look at the fact that it was random as a very strong possibility.
But are you leaning more now towards random than towards targeted?
That's kind of hard to answer. I wouldn't say we're leaning more that way than any way, to be honest with you, because we don't know 100%. We don't know, the speculation of the government involvement or any other government involvement, that type of thing, we're not necessarily saying that's the case. But could they have been targeted for some other reason other than some past dealings that either one of them may have had with their job? Could they have been targeted for some other reason locally, recently? Any different type. Maybe they witnessed something. Those kinds of things. Those options are still out there when we talk about random versus targeted, because targeted is pretty broad as well, and we're still trying to narrow that down. And until we actually know for sure, that's kind of where we have to leave it.
After talking to her, though, and try to reword it here, are you able to rule some scenarios out based on what little information, if any, she's been able to give you?
I would say no. We've not been able to completely rule anything out at this point. My guess is the likelihood of, well, I won't even go there with it, to be honest with you, because we haven't been able to rule anything out at this point. Looking at it from a random perspective, a more localized event, probably more so yes than anything else. But like I say, when it comes to targeting, were they targeted for some other reason? Did they witness something? Were they involved in something locally recently that might have led them to be retaliated against? Those types of things, I think, are still on the table.
When you say communicate, is it mainly by speaking or is it written?
She's been able to speak to us. The numbers of surgeries obviously had made a difference. That has delayed that process, but our main concern, like I say, is her recovery and her well-being. We're taking it slow, and she's doing the best she can. We're doing the best we can under the circumstances. So she is improving daily, which is very encouraging, obviously, for the family as well. And we're optimistic that at some point we'll be able to resolve this whole matter.
Did she say where this attack took place?
As far as specifics go, I don't want to get too detailed with exactly what she has said right now. We're piecing things together. We have to be sure that we have reality versus maybe a perception at this point, or if one story is this way and varies slightly, we've got to make sure we get exactly the same story a couple of times to make sure that that's probably reality. If that's probably the best way to leave that.
Does she seem to recall where it happened? Does she seem to recall in some of these early conversations kind of where it happened?
Yes and no. When statements vary, sometimes it's, you try to determine what is she remembering, and if it's something different this time than it was the first time, it's not completely different, but there's some details that are different. Those tend to make you think, well, we've got to hone down exactly what it is that she remembers happened, and and try to determine what reality is here. And I think as time goes on, as she gets better, and her recollection is there better, she's better able to communicate. I think all this stuff will come into place, and we do feel as though she probably remembers a great deal about what happened, and I think she's frustrated with trying to get that communicated to us in a way that we can work with it.
So, was there a time she remembers being inside that van?
I don't want to get into details, I guess, about exactly what she said to us at this point. The van, I don't think, has played as big a part from her recollection at this point as the witnesses, but that could change.
So it's more likely this attack took place on the trail?
I wouldn't say more likely, but it's certainly a very real possibility. It's probably one of the better possibilities that this took place somewhere between their house and where they were found.
On the trail?
Correct. Or on the roadway somewhere nearby there.
How many times have investigators spoke to her? Roughly.
3 or 4, I guess, over the past few days.
When did they
We've had to put some of it off because of surgeries and things like that. So it's not lengthy interviews. It's a word or two, a statement or two, and sometimes the statements are a little bit different than they were the first time. And that's why I know it sounds like I'm being very vague with this, but the reality of it is I can't commit to something as being this way or that way until we are able to corroborate that or make it a consistent statement and feel comfortable about where we are with it.
Can you describe how closely she's being watched in the hospital? Is it a
Well, she's in, obviously, intensive care at this point still. And we have members of our staff that have been there at the hospital since this first occurred. And no one gets in or out of there without us knowing about it. Let's put it that way.
How many officers can you say?
It varies, but no less than 2.
And can you talk about her from the vantage point of her having lost her husband? Forget the investigation for a minute, but as a woman who is incredibly sick in the hospital and learning about her husband's death while she's there?
That I don't know. I can't. I'm not sure.
In the last few days, being able to talk to her, very limitedly, how confident are you that she will lead you to the suspects?
I personally, I believe, from what I've been told by the investigators, that she has pretty good recollection of what occurred, and whether or not she's familiar with the suspects or not, we don't know that at this time. I do believe her having recalled the incident, recalling a number of suspects, I think in time the descriptions will get more clear, the details will get more clear, and because in a lot of cases when someone just flat out doesn't remember, we wouldn't be as far along in these interviews as we are. So I do feel very confident that eventually she's going to be able to recall this entire incident with descriptions and so on. And that's where we're hoping to go.
Given the severity of her injuries going into this, are you shocked or just see this as nothing short of a miracle that she's able to wake up and speak and recall things? That, to me, that just seems amazing.
Oh, it is. It is an absolute miracle. She was severely injured, still is injured. It's going to be a long recovery. She's got a lot to deal with personally and physically and psychologically as well, with the loss of her husband and with the trauma that went on with this incident. So it's going to be a long recovery process. It is certainly a miracle. And I'm sure she would probably look at it the same way. Quite often with severe injuries like this, and whether it's the physical injury or the psychological side of it, some people just don't remember and can't remember, and sometimes it takes years before they do remember. I don't think that's going to be the case here. We're very optimistic that she's going to be able to provide significant information in this case very soon.
Was she, when she was able to communicate with investigators. Was she even aware that her husband had died? Did she know that that had already happened?
Yes, she is aware, yes.
Did she have to be told by investigators, or did she already know?
I believe someone in the family took care of that. Now, I don't know about any other discussions outside of that about the incident and knowing there, for example. That I'm not aware of.